Welcome. My name is Sascha Moore, and I am delighted to moderate today's broker website workshop on behalf of the leading boutique aggregator National Lending Group, otherwise more commonly known as NLG. So websites are the bane of many brokers' existence, and it's common to have outdated, slow websites that don't really accurately reflect your offering nor perform well in Google searches. And as such, many brokers are lured into often expensive and unnecessary investments. But before we delve into the detail, let's start with why we decided to host today's webinar. So, Steve, we've had extensive chats about this on and offline. I recently did a keynote presentation at the Trail Homes PD Day, and I was asked a question that really bothered me by a broker in the room, which was, I'm spending about $5 or $6 grand a month for search engine optimization. So brokers who aren't familiar what that is, that's basically Google AdWords or anything that's behind a website to help try and boost up the web ranking. So what should be happening, that if you have your website appropriately constructed, that should be very, very natural. So it really bothered me that, and it really stuck in my head that brokers should not be in a position to do this, but unless you understand what's actually involved with it, which is really the genesis of today's event, you won't know, you only know what you know. And so just taking that a step further, Steve, what have been your observations with the brokers in your group?
Thanks, Sasha, and good morning, everyone, and welcome, Paul and Marie. Yeah, it's a $1,000,000 question, almost literally. Good Lord, yeah, we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly within our group, and it wasn't really until we took control of the situation and really nurtured and I guess mentored our brokers through that journey to creating a really good website that we actually saw some good results for our brokers. Because generally speaking, what happens is that they'll go for the cheapest option in terms of a website. The website won't do anything SEO wise. They'll get cold called by a Web123 or Cube Online or something that'll offer them some magic solution to generate leads. And then they'll do some payment plan, which is $800 to $1,000 a month, on the hope that they'll get some leads. Nothing will happen. They'll get frustrated. And then, sadly, they'll mostly move on to the next stage, which is probably buying digital leads, which is an even worse outcome. And so by not building it right in the first place, we see this horrible journey of almost self-destruction and a race to the bottom, really, in terms of the money. I mean, a lot of brokers spend $5,000-6,000 a month on lead generation, where you could spend that on a really good website and solve your problem up front. So that's been our experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually personally really happy to be doing this webinar today because as a business owner, I hate seeing businesses spend money unnecessarily. And really my personal goal is to really educate the brokers who are listening today and who watch this after the fact, just in terms of what to be aware of. So to then revert back to script, I have a habit, as you know, Steve, of going off script. So in this session, what we're going to do is cover why a website is critical to support new business, how a website is built, and the elements that should be incorporated. As Steve was saying, the traps that should be aware of. Importantly, what the realistic costs are involved, because I'm often asked that question, like, how much should it cost for a robust website? And then once you've got that website, how to maintain a great website. So in terms of getting insights, we have engaged with Paul and Marie Antonievich from Get in the Loop. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for having us.
Pleasure. So I have worked personally with Paul and Marie for many years with many different projects. And I have always been impressed with Paul and Marie's very analytical approach, but very practical approach for dealing with websites. And the reason that we invited them to come today was they are very much leading SME web specialists. So they're very accustomed to working with businesses of different sizes, and they do not have a one size fits all, which is another approach which is important, particularly as a business, that the response that you're getting is actually really custom to your needs. We've got a financial services marketing specialist, which is yours truly. So I have a hybrid job today of moderating and also putting in my 2 cents worth from a marketing perspective. As I said before, Paul, Marie, and I have worked a lot together, and that has been really beneficial to make sure that the sales and marketing and brand side very much match up with that user journey and lead generation side, and so on and so forth, which Paul and Marie will take you through. And then, as you would all know, Steve Lake, Director of Partnerships at NLG, who also spearheads the very highly successful Accountant Broker Collaboration Program. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of today, I very much encourage you to feed any questions that you have through via the chat function, and we'll address these at the end of the session. But also feel free to address these questions to a specific panel member should you see fit. And in addition, we're going to be running a survey just to get a bit of an understanding of your company, so we can also tailor the content accordingly. So that will come up very shortly. So let's get into this. So we've talked about this sort of in general terms, why we've decided to host today. But Steve, from your perspective, from an aggregator's position, why is a website critical? And then I'll give you my lens on that.
Okay, so there's a couple of reasons. I think going back to the very sort of basis of your website, you need to understand who your website's talking to is probably step one. And a lot of brokers sort of can miss the beat on this a little bit. As an example, it can be too broad. It can be speaking to a much it's a sort of, I guess, a too broad an audience. Whereas, really what you're looking to do is establish trust. And you also want to be seen as an expert in a certain field. And that expert in a certain field could be a certain type of customer type that you're looking for, or it could be actual referrers that you're looking for. So you need to make sure that it reflects on that. And why is it important? It's the first thing someone's going to do is Google you. And you are who Google says you are. So if you get your website right, get some good reviews, that'll hold you in pretty good stead.
Yeah, I agree. And I might also give sort of a bit of a further context to that. In the marketing and brand addresses that I've been doing recently, one of the things that I've really become aware of, and also one of the reasons why we're hosting today, is I'm seeing a lot of brokers start their marketing without having their foundations right and having their ducks in a row. So the 4 things from my perspective to have your ducks in a row is you want to have your professional social footprint. So you want to have a LinkedIn page. You want to have a personal one. So Facebook, Instagram, whatever you feel is appropriate to then have your business to consumer. So your LinkedIn is your business to business. So LinkedIn is connecting with the broader industry. Your Facebook, Instagram, or whatever it is business to consumer, so how you then reach your customers specifically. You then having a CRM and then having a robust website. So obviously today we're talking about the website, but it fits in this ecosystem. You've got to have these 4 elements to make sure that you're actually coming from a position of strength. Because as Steve was saying, yes, people are going to see if you exist, and they're going to determine if you exist and if you're valid by 2 main areas. One, what your social footprint is. So do you exist on social media? And I know that a lot of brokers are resistant to social media, and that's okay, but it's just, I'm talking about general principles of consumer behavior. Then also, what does your website say about you? And importantly, how does that tone? And as Steve was saying, how is that delivered to me? So we'll go through those in a moment, but off the back of that, there are lots of subliminal cues that a consumer, whether that's a personal borrower, business borrower, or other, is going to be making. They're going to be making assumptions. Is this company trustworthy? Are they experts in their field? And is this somebody who I feel confident that can manage X, Y, and Z? So now that I'm sure all on the same page with the why. Let's get into the nuts and bolts, because this is really the genesis of today's webinar. Everyone would not be here if they weren't on board with why a website's important, but I really want to spend the majority of today talking about how to do this. So Marie, I'm going to go over to you in terms of what makes a good website.
Thank you, Sasha, and thank you, Steve, and good morning, everyone. Well, what makes a good website really depends on the business, their objectives, and their target audience. But generally speaking, for an SME, a good business website is well designed, easy to use, engaging, fast, and easy to update with marketing content. A good website has the flexibility and the potential to grow with your business, and it needs to be secure and reliable. Your website is a really important online asset. I don't know if businesses really understand the value of it sometimes, but this is where you get to tell your unique business story your way. So it's your virtual office, the place your customers, your partners, your colleagues can visit, and they focus their attention solely on what your business has to offer. And in this day and age, that is critical. No distractions, no ads, and no similar businesses vying for your customers' attention. So this is your platform and you are center stage. So what does a good website have? Well, it usually has the following pages: who you are, what you do, how you can help your customers, where you are, how they can contact you. And the trust factor here is also your privacy policy and your terms and conditions. So that usually part of your website, and it must include your unique point of differentiation, your sparkle, because your business website is primarily for your customers, and it's why investing in a branded website with a good foundation is an excellent idea. Your customers expect to find you online, and the main objective of your website should be to provide your customers with enough information to help them make a decision in your favor. So the more satisfying their online experience is with you, the more likely they will call or fill out your contact form. So the challenges are attention spans are short. We're all easily distracted by technology, and our ability to flick, scroll, delete, and skip over important information is at an all-time high. So think of your website as an oasis for your customers. It's away from the noise. It's a green patch, figuratively, that makes them feel good. Oh, relief. Finally, here's a business that I can relate to. Excited. Oh, I like what I see. I want to see more. Confident. I actually understand what they offer. And trust. They sound and look professional. And this is especially important in the finance industry. So summing up what makes a good website, well, a business owner, a team who understand the value of their website and are enthusiastic, committed to promoting it and giving it the attention it deserves. A good business domain name, a robust web builder platform with an easy-to-use content management system, a reliable website person or a team, yourself or internally or external partner, well-designed web pages showcasing engaging marketing content, where you pay attention to your logo, your colors, your layout, and your design elements, and most importantly, call to actions. Your site must be mobile friendly, responsive on mobile devices, especially mobile phones, and you must have a reliable web hosting partner. The need for speed these days is critical, and our society has become so impatient, thanks to our breakthrough advancements in technology, that waiting more than 3 seconds for a page to load is a deal breaker. So fast internet connection and a well-maintained website with regular technology updates to keep everything running smoothly. So that's just an overview. Paul is going to explain more the different stages. But yeah, I would say put a sparkle in your website, your own unique flavour, and understand that you know your customers better than everybody else, and that's what you need to express through your website in order to get them to contact you.
Thank you, Marie. And I think you raised a lot of really interesting points, but I'm also very aware of the degree of detail that we're talking about. And for somebody who's not familiar with this, it can sound really, really overwhelming. So in terms of when we were talking about before, that custom approach versus the off-the-shelf approach, the reason that I definitely advocate a custom approach is because there are many, many, many elements of the website. And even though I've been working in marketing for 1,000 years, I'm still not across all of the back end of it. So that's why working with a company who is going to understand your requirements and can respond in a way that is appropriate to you as a business, as well as ensuring that whether it's from the design, tech, content, or other, that you're led in a way that to succeed. What you don't want to do is choose an what I recommend you don't do is choose an off-the-shelf compartmentalized option that is not holistic, because that's where you become unstuck. If you start to buy lots of little off-the-shelf options and start to try and plug it together, that's often not going to be an optimal environment. So as Michael's just popped into the Q&A section, I completely agree. Your website becomes your resume. But what a website also needs to be is really simple. It needs to be legitimized. So it needs to be really personal. A lot of brokers say, oh, I don't want to put it just my photo on it. I hate having my photo taken. Or I don't want to put my locations in X location because, it might deter, a broader audience. These are all the wrong instincts, which is why it's important. And you wouldn't know that, right? So unless you only know what you know, which is why it's important to partner with a company that is going to extract that information from you and encourage you to put what is right that's going to help you and help your business. So now it's going to drill down a little bit further in terms of how a website's built. So Paul, I'm going to throw to you for this. And again, if we can just keep that very holistic step. So the purpose of telling you how a website's built is not so you all become coders, but it's because so you actually understand the steps that are involved. So when you are looking at a quote or you are looking at a proposal, you have the knowledge to make an assessment whether or not this stacks up. So Paul, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks, Sascha. Yeah, there are a lot of components that go into it. It's better to be aware of them rather than not. And so we're going to cover a lot of this now. It's a bit of a brain dump. I'll try and keep it as top level as possible. But preempting it, it's not a crash course on how to become a web designer or web tech expert. That takes years of experience. It's not what you're interested in doing anyway. It's more of a top level look at the factors to be aware of should you be looking at, say, revamping your existing website, or briefing an agency for a full new redesign or rebuild. We're happy to answer any tech questions at the end or any design questions. So anything we miss here, just throw them in the chat for us. So we break this down into two components. You've got the design, which is an all-encompassing process, and you've got the technology. We can't get away from the technology. It's coming at us at the rate of knots, and it's what drives your business online. So the first stage that we look at is identifying what is your vision. What do you want your website to do? We ask all these questions and gather information before we even start thinking about the design process. So what are your business objectives on the site? Is it to call a 1-800 number? Is it to submit a contact form or a request for a quote? What are your creative preferences? Now, a lot of business owners struggle with that initially. It's like, well, I'm not really sure. You've got your logo, you've got brown colors, you might want a thematic structure through your site that tells more about the story, about the personality of you and your business, and that's got a reflection of your target audience. So if you're not sure, there's some great references out there. Everyone has their favorite website, whether it's in your financial sector or not. So go and have a look at some of those sites and work out what is it that I like about the site. Is it the colors? Is it the cool imagery? Is it the great use of fonts and logo? Get an idea of that, because somewhere down the track, you might need to brief an agency or a designer or developer to come in and help you on your vision and bringing that forward. The next area that we look at with our clients is how many pages. Define what your pages are. Sometimes clients go overboard and it's just unmanageable. So we really like to drill down on that. Are you and your team going to be writing the copy? And we really try to encourage business owners to write some copy. If it's not all the copy and you're not a professional copywriter, that's fine. But at least at the point where you might want to engage with a professional copywriter, you've got a good defined brief for them. And, they've got a good idea as to your vision. Same with images. You would probably want to sort some images down the track to reinforce your brand, and also pages throughout as you scroll down the page. Images that talk to your audience, and some great resources there as well. Photo libraries, free images, paid images, etc. We help our clients in that process. Then it's what content are you going to be putting on your page? Everyone knows websites have text and images, but it can be much more than that. There's video now, so you're starting a video channel. Have you already got one? Well, that's great, because we're going to embed those videos on your pages. What design elements would you like brought forward? If you've got any ideas, there's the use of icons or any other design graphics that reinforce your brand, help talk to your audience or the way that you want to. And then there's functional elements as well, such as forms, contact forms, calculators, Google Maps. If you don't have a Google business listing, you need to get one, and really work that. Get all the details in there. Get your client testimonials in there, because you can pull some of that data onto your site and help build that credibility and that confidence. Most people in the broker will have partners. So who are your partners? Really good idea to have links to your partners, partner logos, institutions that you are associated with. And that also helps to build the credibility and the confidence as those visitors are coming through your site, sussing you out. So once we've got that kind of volume of content, what you're about, your vision, etc., we then start to look at the framework of the site architecture. And there's standards here. Usually we start at the top, which is the header, the top area of your website, which incorporates your logo. You've got the menu to the right of that, usually the logo's to the left. Then you've got your phone and your contact button, and with links to those. The navigational menu is really you've got key pages there that you need to take the user to without too much clutter. So really think about keeping that nice and clean and easy to navigate. So your about page, your products and services, if you've got lots of those, you may want to have sub-pages inside your products. You might have 4 or 5 different products that require their own pages, and which is good for SEO as well. A blog or a news section. Now, some companies really struggle with that because creating content's hard, but some are really good at it, and it's also good for connecting with your audience and also good for search engine optimization. Correspondingly, at the bottom of the page, so we've got the top, the header, and the bottom is the footer. The corresponding functionality to the top, you might have the logo still on there to reinforce your brand, and that allows the user to link back to your homepage. And other secondary links, really, really important, particularly in finance, is your TNCs, terms and conditions, privacy policy, any other compliance and pages you might want to link to, FAQs, so reinforcing some of the buttons that were up at the top menu, contact page, and social icon links. So what Sascha was referring to, the cornerstones of your visibility out there in internet land, it's really good to be able to link to your LinkedIn account, the Twitter account. If you don't have one, it might be worthwhile having a look at that, and your personal accounts that you alluded to, Facebook and so on. So we consider the header and the footer as global elements, meaning that no matter where on the website the user is, whatever page, those elements are always visible, and that allows them for easy, fluid navigation throughout your site. Inside the header and footer is the body content. So all that stuff that we've worked on in the initial stage, your text, your images, videos, etc., needs to be crafted inside the body area. So, for example, if you think of your home page, Typically, you will see like what we call a hero image at the top, which can help set the tone of your site. And that could be like a literal image of your corporate environment or your own work environment, or it could be something more abstract that helps to capture the attention, helps to tell a little bit more of your brand story and who you are, your personality. Underneath that, typically you'll have a positioning statement. So in this case, it might be something like specialist in residential and commercial finance, a nice bold heading, really cool font, and a paragraph to support that underneath, with maybe a link to your about page, more about that. And then as you move down the page, you might want to introduce, some of your product categories. So bridging finance could be a heading or a paragraph to support that, and a link straight to your product section or that respective product page. So it's all about thinking with a visual and text hierarchy from the pages as the visitors are scrolling down. You want to capture their attention quickly and facilitate easy scanning of your site. We all scan, we all flick, and we're all looking for snippets that, I might be interested in that. Okay, I'll click on that link. That looks good. So it's about enhancing that discovery process of who you are. Why would I be interested in you? And gee, this looks a little bit different. I'm going to make an inquiry. And as Marie mentioned before, we've got 1 to 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds at the most to make an impression. So the screen's got a little bit funny here. Can you still see me?
Yes. I was just, when you're ready, Paul, I was just going to put what you're suggesting in context by way of an example.
Okay, right. Okay, good point. So the header section that we're talking about here is you've got the logo at the top, and you've got the menu system logo, about us, our services. And you can see there that the about us has some sub pages there for more content. So that's all in that discovery process that I was talking about at the beginning. We need to define that, find out how big is this thing going to be, and let's craft it to make it really sing and dance. So that philosophy of that top-down approach, you really need to apply that with all your other pages. They'll be different, the content requires different layouts and the likes, but just keeping that structure intact. Other elements to include or consider, of course, your contact page. You need a contact form there, but more often than not, in the finance and broker sector, we're seeing on every page a quote form or a request for quotation, and that might be nicely designed on the right-hand panel of the site that is interwoven with your body content, or it might be in the footer section that's available all the time in that global component. So ultimately, all of these elements need to be visually crafted. A fine detail look at, say, the use of fonts. This is like the science of design now. We like to work with minimal amount of fonts, say 2, maybe 3 at the most. One might apply to the heading. So in this case, Australia's only mortgage broking service exclusively for lawyers. That's got its own distinct font. It's nice. It's got a certain style, but the body text, where all the nugget of information would be a secondary font.
Sure. So Paul, I might just interject for a minute if you don't mind.
Sure.
So I think what Paul has said is a really comprehensive overview about the relative elements, but what I want to do is just break that down very, very specifically. And for those of you, in terms of best practice example, I'd really encourage you to have a look at the Legal Home Loans website and also follow Cullen Haynes, so on LinkedIn as well as Facebook, and you'll see a really good best practice example of how a broker owns their space, is very, very specific, and then adopts the principles of what Paul has just suggested. Every website, it doesn't matter whether you're a florist, a broker, a marketer, will have essentially the same content. So it's a homepage, who you are, about you, which is super important to legitimize who you are, a services of what you actually do. Perhaps it's offers or not, depending on the industry. In our space, so in the broking space, calculators are really loved by consumers, whether they're business borrowers or personal borrowers, so that's a great idea. Blogs, which is a great way to keep your search engine optimization high, so that's putting new content on your site. And frequently asked questions. I'm a bit mixed about frequently asked questions. I, as a personally, I don't love them as much because I think they change a whole load. And I think that also you want to use your website as a bit of an ad, but you want to get people to contact you rather than give all of the information. That said, though, some really poignant, frequently asked questions, definitely I'm on board with. And then a really obvious way to contact you. So a lot of the time when I'm speaking with brokers, it's how on earth where do we even start with this? So my recommendation is what in marketing or web world is called, you work out your sitemap. So what are your top hitters going to be first and foremost? And then you develop the content off the back of that, but then make sure it's really, really simple. Now, the other thing with this, there are scores and scores and scores of website copywriters who can help you with this. So you don't feel that you need to do this yourself. So if you are going to, say, engage with Paul and Marie, they can take you through that process, or equally, you might have another contact who can do it. So a lot of brokers get stumped at this exact stage. Yes, we want a website, but we don't know where to start. Start with the basis of what you want it to tell you, and then drill it down. If you can't do that, if you don't know how to do that, that's when you do a search in Fiverr or Elancer, speak with a web agency or other to then guide you through that process. So the most important thing in that remit is that you're speaking with somebody who says, this is what I need from you and this is what's next, to then take away the onus of feeling that you need to do that yourself. So we might continue on. So in terms of then moving forward, let's talk about the traps that brokers should be aware of. One thing that Steve and I, alluded to before was very much being aware of what I call a silver bullet solution. So companies which say, you spend $5,000 on X per month and we'll deliver Y. If it sounds too it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. And you want to really make sure you've got visibility of that. So if you've got a SEO company, so a digital company saying, spend $5,000 with us and we'll make sure that you're at the very, very top of a Google ranking, my response to that would be go back to your website, because you don't need necessarily an SEO specialist. And again, we're talking about very smaller operators in the broking world. So your companies which are much smaller. Absolutely, for, say, your specialist lending, your lenders, you do need SEO companies. As an individual broker, my perspective is you don't. And 100% that will be challenged by some people. But just to draw a line in the sand, if you're a broking company, you've got a very specific name and you're operating in a very set space, my position is that you should not need SEO if your website is built correctly. If you're a specialist lender, say you're a commercial lender, and there's a similar keyword that every single lender in the market wants, so that would be, bridging finance or commercial finance or asset finance or so on and so forth, that's where you have an SEO strategy, because you've got these major lenders bidding and trying to be up the top of a Google ranking for those words. So really be aware if somebody comes to you and says, look, I can get you 100 leads, I can boost you to this and that and the other. Just go back to your original website, because your website should be doing that for you. So in terms of, that's my perspective in terms of just being aware of any silver bullet solutions. Steve, do you have any additional thoughts on that?
Thanks, Sascha. Yeah, it's a really important question. I've seen a lot of brokers just pour money down the drain, and there's God, I think I opened up Instagram this morning. There were like 5 different lead generation companies for mortgage brokers. There were different companies promising to get you all sorts of different things. Be careful of Google AdWords. They don't really work, right? Everyone knows they're junk. Everyone knows they're paid for, and they're not organic. And most consumers out there don't really click on them. And if they do, they're not really serious about it. So, the organic Google listing that you would get off a good website is going to far exceed it. If you want to spend money on something, take your referral partners out for red wine and steak. Seriously, you will not get a better result. You'll make so much more money. You'll have so much more fun, and you'll get far better results, rather than trying to throw it at and it's to be really brutally honest, they smell the desperation and they play on it. And I've seen brokers throw their last $10,000 towards a really poorly executed lead generation / website program that they could have saved $10,000 or $9,000 and taken a couple of accountants out for a really good lunch and would have got a far better result, far quicker, with far less issues. So just be really careful. I could name names, but I won't name names. But you know who they are. You see them around the traps all the time. They're promising the world. They're giving you an Atlas or Sidways or a Melways, and that's really the bottom of it. Just don't get sucked in. It's not worth it.
Yeah. And I think I want to give just to extend on what Steve says, there are absolutely legitimate lead generation and search engine optimization companies, and I work with a lot of them, and they're absolutely tremendous. But they're tremendous, as I said, for, in my view, the bigger end of town where there's a lot of competition. My view is that in brokers' world, if you've got a robust website, you should not need to spend money on search engine optimization. So again, you've got to look at where is the need. And again, from my perspective, an individual brokerage is not where the market for your really sophisticated search engine optimization companies are. Similarly, there are great lead generation companies. Again, my perspective is that they are more aligned to your bigger companies, which have a lot of cross-pollination. As a broker, if you're applying a mass approach to your lead generation, from a marketing perspective, it is the wrong ethos. My very strong recommendation is to own your space, be very niche in your space, and know your community. And you want to be known, you want to know your community, but you want to be also known by them. So the thing with any type of finance that's going to come your way, it's not people aren't going to be in a readiness state to buy a house today or buy a car today or other, but you want to make sure that when they are in that readiness state, you're front of mind. Your website, from my perspective, has nothing to do with your lead generation. So your website legitimizes who you are, and when somebody is ready to engage with you, they will contact you. Even at a lender perspective, not often have I encountered people filling in forms when they've got an inquiry. They usually want to pick up the phone. That said, and to Paul's point, absolutely, I think it's good best practice to have that option on your website, but I've very rarely heard of a website generating leads. So again, that's another red flag. If you hear a company say, we'll use your website to generate leads, I question their methodology, because in terms of the true sales funnel, people need to be aware of you first, trust you, then be ready to engage with you before they then become a lead. It's very rare that somebody would just do a blind search, you come up, and then they engage with you. Perhaps they might, but my experience has been that it's always been through multiple touch points and often word of mouth, which you can very much increase your likelihood of converting a lead by your Google My Business reviews. So we might move forward, because obviously we've got lots to talk about, and time is slipping. So let's move to the realistic costs involved with a website. So Paul Marie, I'm going to throw this to you, because I really like how you basically break down that there are 3 scenarios that a broker or really any business is going to have. So perhaps if you can start with those scenarios, and then we can look at the respective costs afterwards.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to run this one? Oh, sorry. Yeah, look, scenario 1, we see existing businesses with an existing website, and overall, they're happy with it. The logo's okay, might need a tweak. The layout's sort of okay, but we're getting some complaints from customers that, I can't find this easy, can't find that, and it's maybe not displaying on mobile as perfectly as we want. So what we would offer in that instance is a SEO and a site audit. So we'll go out with our tools and we'll crawl through your site. I won't get too technical on this, but it will reveal a whole bunch of information. such as your on-site SEO, like what keywords are you using, or is it really thin, areas for improvement. Also the site speed. This is a really big one that most people just don't get. Google really ranks site speed in their algorithm. It's a big tick. So you need to pay attention to that. And doing the crawl, we can identify, okay, there are issues here. We're actually grade it from A to B to C, 90 plus and not. And it'll identify areas that you can improve on. In some cases, it's relatively simple. Like we had clients upload an image that's 1 or 2 megabytes. It's like, that's a print file. So yeah, you can address some stuff yourself. Others might require a little bit more heavy lifting from from redesigning or some tech tweaks on the site. But the site crawl will also identify what links are coming back into your site, and quite often you might get a surprise there. So we'll have links from the domains that are linking back to you. Could be from a media outlet, could be from a partner, or just a random blog. So it's good to know about that and areas of improvement that you can work on there. Likewise, it'll also go and search where you are visible out in the marketplace on what do you call it, socials and so on and so forth. So that's scenario one. We'll also have a look at the front end of the site and give you our overall perspective, the branding, etc., and some recommendations for that. We've got a scenario there for the site audit is $250, and we can turn that around in a couple of days for you. The second scenario is you've got an existing website, you've got some indexing online, but it's just not functioning and it's broken, and we need a new site. So we start our entry level for SMEs is what we call a Grow package, and that comes in at 5K plus GST. And we see that pretty much in the middle stage, in the middle sector of the marketplace. There are, there's the cheap end of town, there's the expensive end of town, but we look at an overall package, and it includes everything that we've discussed at the beginning in terms of the design and the technology. Scenario 3 is a new business, a new broker. They're starting from scratch. They need a new logo, they need a new website, and that's where we're bringing partners like Sascha for if you want any advanced logo development or branding design. So they're kind of the 3 scenarios that we see.
Okay, I think that's a really good way to look at it. So what I'd really encourage brokers to think of is essentially, am I happy with my website and is it functioning to its optimal capability? So a lot of the time brokers will have a website that is functioning well, and what it can do is function better. So whether it's Paul and Marie or another group, what the point of sort of having that description is, it shouldn't cost more than a few $100 for a company to go in, do an audit of your website and say, this is where it's great, this is where you could improve. And some of the time it's sort of like going to an orthodontist. It's like, if you want absolutely perfect teeth, then invest 10 grand into some braces. But what you have now is actually fine. So the whole notion of an audit should not be scary. It should just be, and you shouldn't necessarily understand exactly what it is, but you should be on board with the recommendations. So those recommendations, as Paul was saying, might be some things that you can do individually, or it might be some areas that you need help with. But to run that audit shouldn't be more than a few $100. Similarly, a site that's either not functioning and needs to be just rebuilt, or a new business and a new broker that needs to be started from scratch, it's exactly the same scenario. A lot of the times and this is at a lender level, a lot of the times we have a look at sites and we call them legacy sites. So they were built on a software and a platform which is really, really, really outdated. So it means that it's really hard and cumbersome to achieve what we want to be achieving with that legacy site. So a lot of the time it's quicker, simpler, easier just to start from scratch, but make sure that the term in SEO world is Google juice. So all the equity you've brought in your website gets transferred in the process of doing that. So again, I've heard horrendous amounts of money that brokers have spent on websites. Again, my position is that you should be spending circa 5 grand for a completely new build. And then if it's going to be really fancy, you're going to have lots of custom bits and pieces, perhaps allow up to 7 or 8 grand. Now, also what you need to consider in those costings, and make sure you ask the question of what specifically does that 5 grand include? Is it the construct? But does it include your logo? Does it include your graphic design? Does it include your imagery? Does it include the content writing? And then if the person or the company that you're speaking with says no at any point, the next question is, who do you work with that does this? Because what you want to keep is this little ecosystem to make sure that you don't then become lost.
Yep.
So in terms of then moving forward from there, Marie, I'm going to go to you in terms of, we've now got this great website. Do we now set and forget? Or what do you need to do to maintain a great website?
Well, to maintain a great website, you've got to continually review and check your site for any issues. But I think one of the most important things is that you have to be able to, as a business owner, refer to that website on a regular basis. Don't forget it once it's launched, because the idea is for you to be reinforcing the message out in the marketplace. So you want to be able to talk about this website to your customers. You want to refer them there as much as possible. Remember about the noise out there. This is your place. Web technology is changing at the rate of knots, so you must keep on top of all your software updates and security patches and get help if you need it. And there's lots of learning curves on any system. So what we find with small businesses is that you either are updating your website yourself, or you're engaging somebody within your team or externally to help you edit and publish content. So what we do is we like to provide video training, and that really is so that you can refer to it in your spare time, so that you're always making sure that you're keeping your skill base up to date. And also, if you need to, you get too busy, you can pass that training video on to somebody else, and they can learn it in their leisure and in their time. And so you've always got a backup person to help you out. What else is there? Maintaining a great website is just ensuring that you keep up to date with all the maintenance. And because Google is changing all the time, there is so much in the technology world that changes on almost like a minute-to-minute basis, isn't it? It's just like, oh my gosh, this has to be changed. So yeah, just have your technical people on board to make sure that they're on top of all that as well.
Yeah, the best analogy of that really is that text coming out at us at the rate of knots, it's not going to change, and there are certain factors outside of our control, such as the browsers. Google changes its Chrome browser, Firefox, your iOS changes, and suddenly things don't gone out of alignment, something's broken. So it's the analogy would be like maintaining or servicing your car. You know, you got an engine underneath there. You don't want to get underneath the hood yourself, but it needs to be well oiled and it needs to be serviced twice a year, type of thing. So go and get professional help when you need that. You don't need to be overwhelmed by it, but at least being across it is much better than having your head in the sand. So that's our key recommendations about, you know, staying on top of your site, keeping it relevant, keeping your content up to date. You know, team members, for example, new team photos. We've just got new people on board, and so on and so forth. New products or redundant products. Make sure that that's reflected online and you're up to date. And as Marie said, like, all roads should lead back to your website, and that's really where our focus is. We see ourselves as foundation builders. You want to go next step is what you mentioned, Sascha, spending money on SEO or pay-per-click. That's second stage.
Right. So I think it really boils down to, in terms of maintaining a great website, there's the content side and then there's the maintenance side. So I'm going to say something which is very rogue and absolutely not what you would expect for me to say. It's one of those things that's like, you know, a builder never finishes their house. So I have a marketing company, and I am notoriously terrible at updating content on my website. But because my website is built well, it actually affords me, and I have maintenance on it to make sure, as Paul Marie was saying, all of the technical blah, blah, blah is being sorted out. And because I just know that that's being done by somebody who is not me on a monthly basis, and I don't even need to know about it, because the technical side of it is being dealt with, I know that it's going to be robust. Now, the way I cheat by not putting stuff on my website each month is to have my social footprint be substantial. So meaning that when people search my name, and it's exactly the same with you guys as it is with me, I would expect most of the time, people know you, they don't know your company. The equity is in you versus your company. So if you're, as I came back to with my 4 principles to start with, if you've got your professional LinkedIn profile, your personal social footprint, your website and your CRM, every single time you do a LinkedIn or a Facebook or Instagram post or other, you're building your social profile, which then allows you to be a bit lazier with updating content on your website, as long as it's built well. So again, I know that sounds probably very counterintuitive to come from a marketing person. And in an ideal world, I would be so well behaved and, update my website like a good little marketing girl, like every other week. But I just don't. I don't have time. So, but because I am confident in its site, confident of its maintenance, and confident in my social footprint, it gives me a bit of breathing space. So it doesn't mean that your website doesn't need to be accurate, but I feel like a lot of pressure in industry is that you need to update your website all day and every day. And it's just not the case. And it's brilliant if you can, but I also wanted to alleviate that pressure point or that perception. I've got a message saying that's terrible, Sascha. That's funny. Yeah, you know what? It can be terrible, being honest, but my goal is not to be terrible. My goal is just to actually help you be realistic and to help you be successful in what you choose to do. So in order to do that, my very strong recommendation is have an audit done of your website, just to make sure you've got your ducks in a row and that it's functioning well, and hopefully it is. If it's not functioning well, rip the Band-Aid off. Do find some SME web specialists and really engage with them to work out how is the most efficient way to move forward, and make sure you understand all of the costs and timeframes and roles and responsibilities involved. And then once you do have that great website, make sure you do have that ongoing maintenance piece. And if you do have the bandwidth to do blogs, etc., 100% best practice and absolutely endorse it. If you don't, you've got a bit of leeway as long as your social footprint's robust. So we don't have any further questions that have come in, so I might wrap for today. So Paul and Marie, thank you so much for your insights as web specialists. We really appreciate you going under the hood and just letting us know what's really involved in the back end. And I hope that everyone who's listening today feels more empowered just in terms of the elements that are involved, and therefore the questions to ask when you are embarking on a web development piece. Your various aggregators may also have web support and so forth. So make sure you may not be on your own with this. You might have all the resources you have. So even from today, ask your aggregator what web supports you have and so forth that you might be able to tap into. It looks like I've made friends with Michael now. He's just thanked me. So just see what is available to you, and then just if don't bury your head in the sand, just deal with it. January is a good time. It's often time for reflection. So if you are going to do it, just really schedule the resource to do it. So thank you, Paul and Marie. Thank you, Steve, as always.
The mute won't come off. Pleasure. It's great to chat to everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye.
Sascha.